Today we're actually making the most popular recipe on my blog of all time, and that is easy ground pork stir fry. Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Caitlin and this is Frugal Nutrition. I'm really excited to make this recipe because I first came up with it when we lived in Japan, and when it took off a few months later, I was really excited to actually get the chance to use my blog as more than just a hobby, and this is the recipe that kind of put Frugal Nutrition on the map. And those of you who have been making this recipe, this video is dedicated to you. Before we get started, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel, so you can just hit that button and then we'll dive in. So first things first, we're going to get our vegetables prepped and ready to go. If you've ever made a stir fry before, you know that it can be a pretty quick, high heat process, so it's great to have everything prepared ahead of time. First up, we're going to wash the mushrooms. I've got shiitake mushrooms here. Now, some people don't like to wash their mushrooms under running water. They don't really absorb that much water. If the stem is tough or woody, I'll remove it, or I'll maybe just remove the very bottom part, but otherwise it's perfectly edible. So I'll just go ahead and slice right through that. There's flexibility here though, so you can cut it in whatever way is easiest for you. Next up, let's prepare our carrots. You want to give these a good scrub. And then my favorite way to prepare a carrot is to use a julienne peeler. However, as you can see, this cheap julienne peeler from Amazon did not get the job done. I'll link to the one that I've used before in the description box below. The easiest method is probably just to dice your carrot. For the onion, we're just going to dice half of a white or yellow onion. I've also used red onion. This recipe calls for about 4 cups of leafy greens, so I'm using half spinach and half cabbage. You don't have to do anything to prepare the spinach, so you can just set that aside. For the cabbage, I'm going to cut the core out first, and then I'm just going to slice it into sort of these thin shreds. For the ginger and garlic, if you've watched any of my videos before, you know what's coming. I always love to grate ginger and garlic on a microplane. It is something that we brought with us from the States because I use it so much. We're going to use the green onion as a garnish, but you can also use the whole green onion if you'd like, and just cook the white parts with the rest of the onion. Once all of your ingredients are prepared, we can go ahead and start cooking. Here we're going to take a large pan or skillet. A wok is ideal here if you have one. We're going to heat this up over medium to medium high heat. Now here's something that's not very traditional or super authentic. We are going to add this meat and then we're going to leave it undisturbed so that we can develop a little bit of a crust. You certainly don't have to do this, but it does add more flavor to the dish, so I do recommend it. Leave it undisturbed until it starts to get nice and dark on the bottom. I love to let it go until it's a little bit crispy. As you can see, I flipped it a little bit early here, but that's okay. Then we're going to add 1 tablespoon of soy sauce and break it all up. Let that cook until it's browned all the way through. Remove the pork from the pan. You can save some of the oil if there's any in there so that you can cook the vegetables. If you have a lot of oil left, more than a tablespoon, I would drain most of that off. Now, the secret to cooking a stir fry and getting confident in the kitchen in general is understanding how long different things take to cook, so certain things aren't getting mushy while other things are underdone. That's why I have you adding vegetables in stages to this recipe. So we're starting with the onions and mushrooms, but we're not going to add any salt yet. The salt will draw out the moisture and it's more likely to make your mushrooms a little bit more mushy. So we're going to start by just cooking them in the oil until they're starting to brown. The different ways that you cut your vegetables will also influence how long it takes them to cook. So if you've got grated carrots, you're going to add those later with the spinach or the other leafy greens. I usually like to add a little bit of salt around this time as well. Next up, we're going to add the ginger, garlic, the cayenne or red pepper flakes, rice vinegar, another tablespoon of soy sauce, and give all of that a nice stir so that it's pretty well combined. Then we'll go ahead and add in the leafy greens. Now in this case, I'm using spinach, which is incredibly fast cooking, and cabbage, which takes much longer. So I'm going to add the cabbage first, let that wilt for a couple of minutes before adding the spinach. Once the greens are cooked and wilted, go ahead and add the meat back into the dish. Stir really well, and then it's important to taste at this stage. Usually I add the last tablespoon of soy sauce at this stage. Add whatever you think you need. That is how easy a stir fry is. Prepping the vegetables is the hardest part. And some of these vegetables you can buy pre-prepared if that makes your life easier. We're gonna garnish it with the sliced green onion and sesame seeds, and then we're ready to go. I usually serve this with rice, so you can use white rice, brown rice, whatever you prefer. I would just follow the directions on the package of rice that you have. When it's time to plate, I like to add a little bit of rice to the bowl, then top it up high with the stir fry, add more green onions and sesame seeds, and if you have it, sesame oil is great to add here too. The total cost of this very affordable recipe is $5.35, which comes to about $1.34 per serving. Okay, as always, we must have a taste test. It's great. It's rich, flavorful. You can really taste the ginger, which is my favorite part. It's so easy, and we love having this for weeknight dinners. Thanks for being here, and for those of you who have been making this recipe for 7, 8 years at this point, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Once your ingredients are ready to go, then we can get started. Once all of you, see you in the next video. Okay, let's get started.